Sally Field, now 78 years old, lists the 7 actors she has always wished she could date. While The Flying Nun earned 2 Oscars, she won the hearts of Americans. Sally Field is still one of Hollywood's most cherished assets, even though she is 78 years old. Over the course of her 60-plus-year career, she has shared the screen with some of cinema's most dashing leading males. Sally Field has finally answered a long-standing question for her devoted fan base in an unusually open and honest moment of contemplation. These 7 Hollywood hotties who she secretly wished she could date. This is no ordinary cast. Fans' bedroom walls were covered with posters of these guys whose smoldering gazes rendered audiences weak at the knees and who defined masculinity for a whole age. In Sally's list, we get an intriguing look into the life of a woman who has always been more than simply the girl next door, from intense real-life loves to unfulfilled secret obsessions. How can an actor captivate an audience? Is it their intense, penetrating eyes that freeze the action on camera, your spine-tingling, instantly recognizable voice? Or maybe it's that impossible to fake indefinable star quality. Discover about the 7 guys who sparked Sally Field's most passionate performances during her illustrious career. These anecdotes will shed new light on one of America's beloved actors and the men she admired. From the passionate on-screen chemistry that grew into real-life romance to the admiring looks exchanged across packed award ceremonies. Get comfortable, because we're going to enumerate the 7 top guys in Hollywood who captivated the heart of our longest-running star. I guarantee you, the first item on this list will have you exclaiming, "I can't believe they never got together." But first, let's begin with the man who briefly won Sally's heart, the number 7. The name is Burt Reynolds, the too luminous romance of real life. Nobody living in the late 1970s could have missed them. The Hollywood golden couple, Sally Field and Burt Reynolds, appeared to have it all. Reynolds' rough machismo with his distinctive mustache and arrogant chuckle was the ideal foil to Field's girl, next-door charisma and indisputable skill. However, few admirers really grasped the complexity and tragic ending of their love. They started dating in 1977 while filming Smokey and the Bandit. Just the mere mention of Reynolds' name on the marquee would have been enough to fill theater seats. He was already a huge financial success. Meanwhile, Field was engaged in a struggle to remove the innocent persona she had cultivated in films such as The Flying Nun and Gidget. Their electric and immediate attraction was palpable. Some aspect about him stood out. During an interview with Diane Sawyer, Sally once disclosed, "I was smitten with him and the camera was too." You couldn't ignore the undeniable chemistry, this magic that shone whenever he entered a room. They spent nearly 5 years together, having 4 films together that highlighted their obvious chemistry as actors. Smokey and the Bandit 2, The End, and Hooper are the films in question. The audience felt like they were seeing something genuine and unique because of their real-life relationship, which boosted their performances on screen. However, deep down, problems were starting to emerge. After a jaw injury, Reynolds, who was already struggling under the weight of celebrity, turned to prescription medications. Field was emerging as a formidable dramatic actor, but he was becoming a stifling presence due to his jealousy and domineering conduct. At the peak of Sally's career, she hit rock bottom. She became one of Hollywood's most renowned actresses after winning her first Academy Award for her 1979 role in Norma Rae. Reportedly, Reynolds was frightened by her success and did not celebrate it. Their relationship fell apart as her star rose. In his 2015 memoir, Reynolds would show sadness about losing Field, whom he called the love of his life, years after they broke up. Although she acknowledged their intense bond, Sally's reaction was more measured, and she acknowledged the toxicity of their relationship. Ours was an authentic relationship, not a Hollywood romance. It was complicated and fraught with difficulties, but it was very real, she writes in her fragmented book. The fact that the 2 actors continued to speak about the relationship with such emotional honesty decades after it ended is what really makes it interesting, not the fact that it happened at all. Reynolds kept bringing up Field as the scapegoat right up until his death in 2018. Even though he is quite clear about their issues, Field has never denied the strong attraction he felt for her. Their love story goes beyond the typical Hollywood fare, a warning tale on the inadequacy of passion to sustain love. However, it also highlights the fact that some people can continue to influence us even after a relationship has ended. Burt Reynolds symbolized a turning point in Sally Field's life narrative, a passion that was too intense to endure, but too meaningful to ever completely dispel. Sally was interested in other leading men besides Reynolds. We can go on to her list. Item 6 now. An enduring icon with blue eyes whose charisma touched people of all ages. Number 6. John Candy, the utopian aspiration of the blue-eyed boy. Forever rooted in the realm of imagination, certain crushes persist. Faraway stars that we can only hope to one day touch. Paul Newman embodied that idealistic allure for Sally Field. With his renowned sharp features, piercing blue eyes, and unfussy coolness, Newman was more than an actor. For decades, people looked up to him as a cultural icon. An actor like Paul Newman elevates everyone around him to a higher level. In the midst of a Hollywood tribute, Sally made a comment. Not only that, but those eyes were more than just blue. They said the truth. Even when he viewed you on TV, it seemed as if he were looking directly into your eyes. Sally and Paul happened to run into each other multiple times at industry events, charity galas, and award shows, even though they never shared a screen in a film. Their mutual regard was on full display when Newman supposedly complimented Field's acting in Norma Ray and Places in the Heart. What really sold Newman was not his good looks, the eyes though, those were a plus, but rather the nuance and complexity he injected into his parts. Similar to Field's acting style, Newman portrayed guys in his films Cool-Hand Luke and The Verdict who struggled with moral uncertainty and emotional turmoil. Unlike a lot of his peers, Newman was just as charismatic outside of the camera as he was on screen. He proved that true love could endure the pressures of celebrity and longevity in his 50-year marriage to Joanne Woodward, which became the model for Hollywood devotion. In particular, his Newman's personal food company, which gave up all of its revenues to charity, demonstrated a commitment to philanthropy that was in line with Field's personal advocacy. During an interview with Turner Classic Movies, Sally remarked, "I don't think what made Paul so wonderful was just how he looked. His character, honesty, dedication to his work, and passion for his causes were all part of it. That's the thing that made him hot." Generations of actresses, Sally included, couldn't help but admire Newman from a distance, despite his unwavering commitment to Woodward throughout his life. He stood for something that is becoming more and more uncommon in Hollywood. A rare combination of intelligence, good looks, honesty, and years of service. Field was one of several in the business that paid respect to Newman's impact after his death in 2008. She claimed that nobody existed who was identical to him. He was an exemplar of what it means to be a decent human being and an A-list actor. Handling that role is considerably more challenging. Perhaps Paul Newman was the ideal movie star crush that never materialized, the unreachable ideal. However, our following candidate on Sally's list stands for something distinct. The macho action hero whose cocky charisma made him the most bankable performer in Hollywood in the 80s. Number 5, Harrison Ford, the begrudging sex icon. Despite the fact that Harrison Ford and Sally Field never shared a screen together, she became enchanted with Indiana Jones and Han Solo, much like millions of other women around the world. Ford embodied a fresh breed of Hollywood leading guy. Sally was captivated by his immense charisma, which was both vulnerable and courageous. During an interview part on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Sally once acknowledged that Harrison Ford is insanely gorgeous. With a knowing smile, Sally conveyed everything, and the audience went wild in accord. There are several attractions that everyone may enjoy. It was perhaps Ford's attitude to fame that drew in someone like Field. Harrison shared Sally's reputation for prioritizing skill over fame and the spotlight over performance. Ford, who famously worked as a carpenter in between acting gigs, and Harrison, who became recognized around the world in 1977 thanks to Star Wars, Both rose to stardom around the same time in the profession. Norma Ray brought Field her first Academy Award, and Ford was busy cracking jokes as Indiana Jones. During the 1980s, they embodied opposing forces in Hollywood. Both of them are actors. She plays a tragic role, and he is an action hero. But what really distinguished them from their contemporaries was the sincerity and lack of boastfulness that they brought to their own works. For Sally, the appealing thing about Harrison goes beyond what meets the eye, as she noted in a film retrospective from the 1980s. It's that he never seemed to buy into his own hype. There's something very appealing about someone who can be the biggest movie star in the world and still seem like they'd rather be building furniture in their workshop. It never came to pass that these two would work in tandem. Who knows what kind of on-screen chemistry they could have created, given their long histories working with the same studios and directors. It almost seemed like cinematic magic when Field's emotional transparency clashed with Ford's harsh minimalism. Sally is the latest in a long line of co-stars and colleagues to compliment Ford on his work ethic and subtle charisma. Thus, their relationship is more one of professional respect from a distance. Despite their differences, they all belong to the same ecosystem in Hollywood and valued honesty over glitz and content over flair. The idea of a Ford-Field romance, however made up, has a particular allure for admirers of both men, finding common ground. Two unassuming Hollywood stars who were never quite Hollywood types found love. This coupling, which exists solely in the realm of possibility, is one of the most fascinating what-ifs in cinema. However, the next man on Sally's list exemplified a different type of male allure than Harrison Ford, who personified the action hero cliché that ruled 1980s cinema, the diminutive movie star whose mustache sparked a myriad of imaginations. Exactly for Celeb, Tom. 1,000 dreams were ignited by that mustache, as Sally Field was becoming a household name in the 1980s for her dramatic roles in Hollywood. Another star was on the rise, but this one was more suited to the tiny screen. Tom Selleck became a cultural phenomenon with international appeal after playing the role of Private Detective Thomas Magnum in the hit TV series Magnum P.I. That allure was definitely noticed by Sally. In contrast to the seriousness of many Hollywood actors, Selleck's 6 feet 4 inch stature, distinctive mustache, and sparkling eyes portrayed a lighthearted masculinity. In multiple interviews, Sally has brought up Selleck while talking about the iconic performers of her time, even though they never worked together directly. According to her, Tom Selleck had this wonderful quality. She made this comment during a profession retrospective. Despite his stunning good looks, he had an approachable quality about him. He wasn't some inaccessible god. He seemed like the kind of person you could meet and strike up a discussion with. Part of what made Selleck so appealing was how approachable he was. He had the excellent looks of a classic movie star, but he came across as approachable and real, which made viewers feel like they knew him. Like Field, Selleck never appeared to take himself seriously. He continued to refine his acting skills while keeping up a self-deprecating sense of humor about being a sex symbol. There were numerous ways in which the time of their careers were similar. At the same time that Field was taking home her second Oscar in 1985 for Places in the Heart, Selleck was starting to make the leap from stage to film with roles in Three Men and a Baby. They were both faced with the challenge of balancing their stardom with a seemingly average life. There's something about that era, Sally pondered while discussing the 1980s in Hollywood. We were all kind of acquainted, at least superficially, through parties and award ceremonies. When Tom would enter a room, it was hard not to take notice. After all, who could help but? However, as soon as he began to speak, it became clear that he was as down to earth and ordinary as everyone else working in the industry. The fact that Selleck was known as one of the very good guys in Hollywood may have been a major selling point for Field. In real life, Selleck was just like Field, a consummate professional who treated her coworkers with the utmost respect. Highly skilled experts who consistently prioritized treating people with respect. Even though they only met once or twice at industry events, the mutual regard between them was clear. As many of Selic's peers have praised Field for her acting and the impact she had on cinema, along with the other performers whose work Sally liked in that early decade of her career, she has incorporated him in her characteristic, discreet manner. Celic was the embodiment of perfection for a generation of viewers, dashing without being intimidating, manly without being macho, and successful without being unapproachable. Those were admirable traits during a period when flash was more important than substance, and it's easy to see why Sally Field would have recognized them. However, the next candidate on Sally's list was famous for something very different, a reputation as Hollywood's most renowned ladies' man, in contrast to Celic, who embodied television's version of the classic movie star. Thirdly, there's the charming romance killer Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty, the renowned Hollywood actor, director, and producer whose love affairs gained almost as much notoriety as his films, must be included in any list of Hollywood's most desirable men. Beatty embodied the pinnacle of Hollywood charisma for aspiring young actresses in the 60s and 70s, and Sally Field was no different. During a roundtable discussion with a Hollywood reporter, Sally recalled that Warren possessed this air of authority. The atmosphere shifted the moment he entered a room. It was felt by all, male and female. You felt that you were his exclusive priority because of his laser-like concentration while he spoke to you. The concept of Field and Beatty being romantically involved isn't completely out of the question, even though it was never actually the case. They both achieved stardom about the same time. Beatty was already a huge star when Field was making the jump from TV to movies, so they probably ran into one another at a lot of business parties. It is highly likely that Beatty would have been captivated by Sally's talent and girl next door charisma, considering his history of seeking girls with acting chops. It wasn't merely Beatty's superb acting in hits like Heaven Can Wait, Shampoo, and Bonnie and Clyde that made him interesting. It was also his famous stunning looks. It was his wit and his grasp of Hollywood's dual nature as an industry and an art form. Beatty was more than meets the eye. He made significant contributions to the 1970s American film industry as a filmmaker, something that would have chimed with Field's aspirations as an artist. When Sally was talking about actresses who went on to become famous directors, she said that being well versed in the industry as a whole is a huge plus. Warren had a gift for narrating tales from any and all perspectives. The ability to see the big picture as an actor, writer, director, and producer is, to put it mildly, attractive. Beatty's allure was tainted by rumors of his infidelity. He was linked to Madonna and Natalie Wood before he ultimately tied the knot with Annette Bening in 1992. For many actresses of the time, the prospect of playing the role of the woman who won over Hollywood's most infamous bachelor must have been tempting. The disparity between Beatty's image and Sally's, who had a far more positive public image, could have provided an intriguing dynamic for Sally. Her sincerity and vulnerability play against his refined air of mystery in this classic case of opposites attracting. Field and Beatty as a dream team provides an interesting what-if moment in Hollywood history. Even though we can only guess about their real attraction to one another, would her steady demeanor have calmed his flitting soul? Is it possible that his intensity would have brought out even more of her amazing talent? Perhaps these are questions more suited to the domain of cinematic fantasy, where they still reside. Our next candidate on Sally's list, in contrast to Hollywood's refined ladies' man Warren Beatty, had something unique to offer. His effortless charisma and genuine talent earned him a place among his contemporaries' most revered performers. Separately, Jeff Bridges. The on-screen chemistry that was so intense. From time to time, the truths revealed by on-screen chemistry go beyond what is written in the script. The Kiss, Me, Goodbye romance flick from 1982, starring Sally Field and Jeff Bridges, was sure to turn heads. Field, who played a widow whose new romance is tainted by the spirit of her late husband, had multiple passionate scenes with Bridges, demonstrating their effortless chemistry on screen. Dancing with someone who always knows the next step Sally stated in retrospective about the film about working with Jeff. There's a shortening that develops a trust. You can try anything because you know they're right there with you, supporting whatever choice you make. This professional admiration clearly had personal undertones. During promotional interviews for the film, attentive viewers noticed the warmth in Sally's voice. When discussing Bridges, the slight flush that would appear when recounting their scenes together. While always professional and discreet, the subtle signs of attraction were there for those paying attention. What made Bridges particularly appealing was his unique position in Hollywood. Neither a conventional leading man nor character actor, Jeff carved out his own niche with performances that combined technical skill with natural charisma. From The Last Picture, Show to Starman, Bridges brought an authenticity to his roles that matched Field's own approach to acting. Jeff has never been afraid to be vulnerable on screen. Sally noted in a later interview about actors she admired, "That's rare, especially among men of our generation. He could play strong characters without relying on traditional machismo. There's something very attractive about that kind of security in one's own skin." The timing of their collaboration is significant as well. Kiss Me Goodbye came at a pivotal moment in both their careers. Field fresh off her first Oscar win. Bridges establishing himself as one of Hollywood's most versatile actors. Both were hitting their stride professionally, bringing confidence and maturity to their craft. Off-screen, they shared similar values despite different personalities. Both maintained relatively low-profile personal lives by Hollywood standards, prioritized family, and approached their celebrity with a healthy skepticism. Briggs laid back California coolness complemented Field's more intense, emotionally available Southern warmth. While no romantic relationship developed in reality, Bridges has been happily married to Susan Geston since 1977. The professional respect and personal warmth between them has endured at various awards, ceremonies, and industry events over the years. Their reunions have been marked by genuine affection and easy conversation that speaks to a lasting bond. For fans of both actors, their connection represents one of Hollywood's more intriguing might-have-beens. A pairing that made perfect sense on paper and sizzled on screen, but remained in the professional realm. Their chemistry in Kiss Me Goodbye, while not enough to make the film a major hit, remains a testament to the mysterious alchemy that sometimes occurs between two gifted performers. But while Jeff Bridges represented a perfect professional partnership with hints of something more, our final contender on Sally's list embodies a different kind of appeal altogether. The rugged Western icon whose voice alone could make an entire theater swoon. I need sleep, brother. No. Come on, you help me. You help me write the letter, please. 1. Sam Elliott, the voice, the mustache, the legend. At the top of Sally Field's list of actors she most wanted to date stands a man who represents the quintessence of rugged American masculinity, Sam Elliott. Though they never starred in a film together, the potential pairing of Field's emotional depth and Elliott's stoic strength represents one of Hollywood's great missed opportunities. That voice, Sally reportedly said during an AFI tribute, shaking her head with a knowing smile. Sam Elliott could read the phone book and women would line up around the block to listen. There's something about that slow, deliberate way he speaks that just, indeed, we do know Elliott's deep, resonant baritone has become legendary in Hollywood. Instantly recognizable whether he's playing a cowboy, a roadhouse bouncer, or himself in a self-parodying commercial. Paired with his signature mustache and weathered good looks, Elliott created a persona that feels like it walked straight out of an American myth. What makes the idea of a Field-Elliott pairing so appealing is the contrast they represent. Sally's characters often showcase vulnerability, emotional transparency, and a certain wholesome quality, while Elliott's embody restraint, quiet strength, and an old-school stoicism. It's the classic yin and yang that creates both romantic and dramatic tension. I've always been drawn to actors who bring something completely different from me to the table, Sally once explained when discussing potential co-stars. The most interesting combinations come from those contrasts. The emotional and the reserved, the animated and the still. That's where the sparks happen. Though their paths crossed at various Hollywood functions over the years, timing never aligned for them professionally. Elliott was often typecast in westerns and rugged character roles, while Field pursued more diverse projects that showcased her range. A collaboration between them remains one of cinema's intriguing what-ifs. What adds poignancy to this hypothetical pairing is that both actors share similar values despite their different screen personas. Both have maintained long-term marriages. Elliott to actress Catherine Ross since 1984 prioritized family over fame and approached their careers with a workmanlike dedication rather than a pursuit of celebrity. There's something very attractive about someone who's maintained their integrity throughout their career. Sally noted when discussing actors of her generation who've aged particularly well, who hasn't chased trends or tried to be something they're not. That authenticity becomes more and more appealing the longer you're in this business. For fans of both actors, the fantasy of Sally Field and Sam Elliott together represents a perfect balance. Her emotional expressiveness complementing his reserved strength. Her petite stature against his imposing presence. Her rapid-fire delivery playing against his measured draw. It's a pairing that exists only in our imagination, but one that perfectly captures the appeal of contrasting energies. As Elliott himself might say in that unhurried honey over gravel voice, some things just make sense, even if they never actually happened. The power of attraction. What Sally's list reveals about Hollywood and ourselves. What can we learn from Sally Field's 7 dream co-stars? Beyond the obvious appeal of these handsome, talented men, her selections reveal something deeper about attraction, compatibility, and the evolving nature of Hollywood masculinity. First, notice the variety in her choices. From Batty's sophisticated charm to Elliott's rugged authenticity, from Newman's classic movie star appeal to Briggs' artistic credibility, Sally's taste encompasses a wide spectrum of masculine energy. This reflects her own versatility as an actress and reminds us that attraction is rarely one-dimensional. Second, all 7 men share certain qualities despite their differences. Each brought authenticity to their performances, maintained lengthy careers despite Hollywood's fickle nature, and demonstrated a seriousness about their craft. These common threads suggest that for Sally, as for many of us, surface appeal might catch the eye, but substance maintains the interest. I've always been drawn to talent, Sally once reflected during a career retrospective. The most attractive quality in anyone, but especially in this business, is commitment to the work. Whatever form that concentration and commitment takes, it is irresistible. Quite a few of these folks stood in contrast to the stereotypical Hollywood hero, which is illuminating. There was no denying their good looks, but it wasn't enough to get them anywhere. Their performances challenged the one-dimensional macho standards of bygone periods with subtlety, vulnerability, and nuance. The development here mirrors Sally's personal path to stardom in Hollywood. Her affinity to males who also defied typecasting reflects her artistic and feminist principles. From the carefree, innocent parts she played in her early career to the multi-layered performances that garnered her critical praise. Viewers of a particular generation are taken back to a bygone era when Hollywood A-listers had gravity that is sorely lacking in today's celebrity scene by Sally's list. Not only were these 7 men attractive, but they also embodied a specific type of mature manhood. Someone who is self-assured without being conceited, powerful without being domineering, and who takes their job seriously without coming across as pretentious. The performers of that generation were unique. In a discussion about the history of Hollywood, Sally made the following observation. They came up in an era when you had to prove yourself, when longevity was the true measure of success. That creates a different kind of performer than the overnight fame we see today. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Sally's reflections is that she has seen Hollywood from every angle for 60 years. Field has seen the fame machine firsthand throughout her career, from her days as a TV engine to her present position as an industry elder stateswoman. In the midst of all that glitz and glamour, her opinion on which men stood out is valid. Ultimately, The men on Sally Field's wish list reveal just as much about her as it does about their ideal co-stars. A complex, talented, and genuine lady who appreciates these qualities is shown. Throughout her impressive career, she has demonstrated these qualities herself. Plus, isn't it the best attribute ever? One last thing, the reasons why we adore these Hollywood couples. As we wrap off our look at Sally Field's 7 dream-leading men, it's interesting to consider why these imagined connections are so intriguing. Why is it that picturing our beloved celebs together has such a profound effect on us? It might be because these made-up couples provide us the chance to mix and match the greatest traits of our favorite celebs. We can project our own values onto a partnership that combines the gruff stoicism of Sam Elliott with the softness and emotional honesty of Sally Field. Maybe there's an easier way to look at things. These what-if scenarios allow us to envision connections rooted in something more meaningful in a world where celebrity ties frequently burn bright but then fade. Praise, understanding, and appreciation for one another. Respect is vital in every relationship, whether it's on screen or off. Everything else follows from what Sally has said. Longevity, chemistry, and connections. Nothing of value can be yours without it. At 78 years old, Sally Field is a living proof that physical attractiveness isn't the only factor in attracting an audience. The most captivating actors are those who give their whole selves to every part. Sally and her 7 ideal co-stars have my toast. In honor of all the relationships, real and imagined, past and present and future, those made-up relationships can be the most ideal in the enchanted Hollywood universe. Like and subscribe for more intriguing insights into the lives and legacies of Hollywood's biggest stars. If you enjoyed this tour through Sally Field's romantic wish list, let us know what you think by leaving a comment. Out of these 7 actors, which one do you think Sally would have partnered with best? As we bid farewell to another era of Hollywood greatness, this is the channel dedicated to the stars of yesteryear.